Boys and girls?
We are.
We are?
Sorry, I don't mean to get in your way.
Steve, you're ready to
I'm ready.
All right.
Yeah, it should be ultrasound machine.
Good evening, everyone.
Good
Welcome
evening.
to our November public meeting. Thank you for being here with us this evening. It's a little bit lighter of a crowd than we're used to, but I'm not gonna complain. Yeah. But thanks for being here with us this evening. We have a roll call, please.
Mrs. Allberger? Mrs. Coghlan?
Here.
Mr. DeYoung?
Present.
Mr. Higgins?
Here?
Mrs. Incarnato?
Here.
Mrs. LaFara?
Here.
Mrs. McGee?
Here.
Mr. Sparta? Mr. Zweier?
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a reading of the meeting notice, please?
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meetings of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provision of this act, the Vernon Township Board of Education has caused notice of the meeting to be published. Adequate notice has been provided, and notice of this meeting has been properly posted in accordance with the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law.
Thank you. We do have a closed session on the agenda. Can we have it at the end of the meeting?
Yes, sir.
All right, is that,
No action will be
board is
taken
okay
after.
with that? We'll move that to the end, and then, well, we'll approve the HIB after that, right? But that would be it.
I'm sorry,
Yeah,
yes.
but only, that'd be the only action. So we'll move right to letter F then, approval of minutes. We have a motion, please, for F1 minutes of the work session from October 12th.
So moved.
Mr. DeYoung, second?
Second.
Mr. Higgins, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnato?
Yes.
Mrs. LaFara?
Yes.
Mrs. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Zweier?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Motion, please, for F2 minutes of the closed session from the work session October 12th.
So moved.
Mr. Higgins, second.
Second.
Mrs. LaPera, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Incarnato?
Yes.
Mrs. LaFara?
Yes.
Mrs. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mr. Zweier?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Motion, please, for F3 minutes of the board retreat from Saturday, October 14th.
So moved.
Mr. Higgins, second.
Second.
Mrs. Incarnato, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. LaPara?
Yes.
Mrs. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins?
Oh, no, I'm sorry, I have to abstain for that.
Mr. Higgins?
Abstain?
Mrs. Incarnato?
Yes.
Mr. Zweier?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Motion, please, for F4 minutes of the public meeting from October 19th.
So moved.
Mr. Higgins, second.
Second.
Mrs. LaPera, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnato?
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara?
Yes.
Mr. Zweier?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
And finally, a motion, please, for F5 minutes of the closed session from the public meeting October 19th.
So moved.
Mr. Higgins.
Second.
Mrs. Coghlan, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Coghlan?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnato?
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara?
Yes.
Mrs. McGee?
Yes.
Mr. Zweier?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
Letter G, correspondence.
Yes, we've received correspondence from Kathleen Belli, Kevin Gauckland, Sandra Burvett, Skark, Maggie Jernick, Nancy Hughes. The 3 employees listed, there is also an additional employee on the addendum requesting medical leaves of absence.
Thank you. Letter H, President's Report. Very brief tonight. I just want to wish everyone a happy and healthy Thanksgiving. Hopefully everybody gets some much-needed rest, and hopefully everyone finds peace over that break. In addition, also, I spoke to Mrs. Incarnato. She wished to just make a statement as part of, I guess it could be a committee report or as part of my report, but Mrs. Incarnato.
Thank you, Dave. Good evening. I have been reading on numerous social media posts
that the Historical Society submitted a written bid to purchase one of the Board of Education buildings. I never received a copy of that bid. Steve, I need to ask you, do you have a written bid from the Historical Society that you haven't shared with the board members?
No. No.
So you never received anything that we never received?
No, August 9th, the bid opening, we did receive the two form bids from Bruce Zaretsky, the Green Realty. Bruce did bid on both buildings, and the Green Realty only bid on the one building. Those were the only formal bids we received.
Okay. I do have an email written by Jesse Palladini, sent to Steve Kepnes and Artie Benedetto on October 17th, after the Board of Ed directed all potential bidders on the Route 515 building to submit final bids no later than 10/19/17. I just want to read you that email, so there's no confusion. Mr. Kepnes, the Vernon Township Historical Society Board of Trustees has met and has determined that at this time, we are not comfortable with bidding an amount for either the 515 building or the 293 Route 94 building. However, if in fact the Board of Ed does not deed the Route 515 building to the Historical Society, and the Historical Society were forced to purchase a building, we have already made an offer to match the single bid amount the Board of Ed received from the developer. Likewise, if we were not deeded the Route 515 Board of Ed building and were forced to vacate the building at 293 Route 94, we would also offer $100,000 for the Route 94 building. This email clearly states we are not comfortable with bidding an amount. The Board of Ed received 2 additional written bids, and the building was subsequently sold to the highest bidder for $176,000. Brad Sparta, who cannot be here tonight due to a previously scheduled trip, and I have since been accused of some serious allegations on social media. Those that accuse us do not know us at all. Brad Sparta, along with the Board of Education Liaison Committee, worked to come up with a solution satisfactory to all parties. Dave Zweier, our Board of Ed president, had suggested this idea to enlist the help of the Liaison Committee, and Brad Sparta was already the chairperson of that committee, so Brad began the process. Much time and effort was spent to try to find a path forward for the Historical Society. Sadly, in the end, his efforts were in vain, as the parties could not come together with a workable solution that made everyone happy. I am horrified to read the accusations on social media that Brad Sparta was a party to backdoor deals and that he was a power broker. Those comments made about a loyal and hardworking Board of Education member are reprehensible and heinous. I joined the Board of Education on July 20th to fill a vacant seat left by Mr. Walsh, who had resigned his position. I arrived after the reconfiguration was approved and plans had been put in place. Soon after I was appointed, the 2 Board of Ed buildings went out for bid. The initial bid on the Route 515 building was $100,000, and I was inclined at first to vote to transfer the Route 515 building to the Historical Society. But I changed my mind, and I'm allowed to do that because I think independently and I have my own opinions and thoughts. We promised the taxpayers both buildings would be sold as part of the reconfiguration plan. I went back and I read through the numerous Board of Ed minutes indicating those expected building sales. Our state funding was cut and our expenses remain high. We expect to lose more state aid funding next year. A workable solution and compromise with the Historical Society was not to be. I honored our pledge to the taxpayers to sell the building and voted with my conscience. To my complete shock and surprise, I have since been accused of changing my vote in exchange for the mayor's endorsement in the election. If you know me at all, you would never accuse me of such a vile and despicable act. In fact, I introduced myself to the mayor after the Meet the Candidates night at the end, after I had already voted to sell the building. I don't even know Harry Shortway, other than that introduction and subsequent friendly conversation that evening. I interviewed for my seat on the Board of Ed out of gratitude for the wonderful education my 3 children received in our great district. I thought I could work hard in a collaborative manner to make things better. Instead, my actions and reputation were attacked, and my name was dragged through the mud. Many people told me I was crazy to step forward, to lend a hand, and to serve on the Board of Ed. My 2 daughters were already in college, and my son was going to graduate. Some days, I realized I was probably crazy to think I could make a positive difference. To those people who reached out to me to lend their support, I say a heartfelt thank you. Good, honest, and decent human beings sit on this Board of Education, and it was an honor and a privilege to serve at their side. They have their own families and their own jobs. They don't need to be here and volunteer so much of their own personal time and effort for this district. This is far more than 2 meetings a month. What happened to me and Brad Sparta could happen to anyone serving here. And these events will discourage other good and honest people from stepping forward. Who would blame them for thinking twice? In closing, the holiday season is upon us. Perhaps we can stop and reflect on these events and find a way to work together in a civil and collaborative way. It's okay if we don't always agree, and it's okay if we don't always get what we want. But attacking each other needs to stop. We can do better. I believe we all want that. Thank you.
Jen, you can file that under liaison committee report, okay? Thank you. Just a quick update from negotiations committee, then Ed, I'll go to you for
Okay.
finance committee. Even
No
though I usually
rush.
start with you.
No rush.
The negotiations committee and the VTEA are meeting on November 28th, for our first mediation session. I'm optimistic and hopeful that we can continue to work closely together as we did throughout the negotiation process and come to a mutual agreement on the contract. So that will be upcoming in the next week or so, week and a half. Mr. DeYoung, Finance Committee report.
Yes, I have a report. First, I'd just like to commend Carolyn on her words and fully support what you said. You're a class act lady, serving here for 5-6 months. And you've done a great job, and you don't deserve any of this stuff that apparently is on Facebook. I don't go on it to watch, so.
Thank you, Ed.
Your words to everyone to kind of settle down and stop criticizing. It's okay to disagree. I mean, you and I disagreed on the sale of the building. We didn't disagree. We voted differently. And we spoke afterwards, and we understood why each of us had the position that we did, and that's what good boardsmanship is about, and that's what you have been. The Finance Committee meeting, November 7th, 10 a.m. in Mr. Kepnes' office. I was there along with Mr. Higgins, Steve, Mrs. Brem, and Ms. Wallach. We had 4 items that Steve had placed on the agenda. The first one was the ESSA additional account codes update. I'm not going to drag you through that. I think we talked about that before, but the federal government's asking for microscopic breakdown in the budget per school for a bunch of different items, and it makes our report probably 10 times as thick as it should be. And I have no idea why they're doing that, but apparently they do. The second one was the budget summary. The cost analysis was shared, displaying salary costs per building. That's part of these additional account codes. Steve used that as an example, especially with the increased number of aides in the district and all those account codes. It's just going to make budget time this coming year pretty complex. At this point, the cost has exceeded the original budget. This is on the breakdown of the aides, by the way. But there was some question about how much money was being saved on reducing some time that some of the aides had. And when Steve went back and did a breakdown of that, we're already $51,000 over our budgeted cost for aides at this point in the year, and I'll probably go up a little bit. So keep that in mind. Food service was the third item. Mr. Kepnes described the required changes related to food service contracts. I think we talked about that at our work session, so I won't go into that anymore. There's a resolution, I believe, in tonight's that we will be voting on that will permit us to lobby for more flexibility in awarding food service contracts. And then the last item was salaries for non-union employees. Steve began a discussion with the Finance Committee regarding the possibility of approving a salary increase for unaffiliated union members in our district. And if that discussion reaches the board, we will discuss that, but the Finance Committee had no further recommendations on it. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Mr. DeYoung. Mrs. Coughlin.
Hi. Special Services Committee notes. Just so everybody knows, if you could bear with me, this is going to be long only because I'm going through 2 different meetings, but each month will not be this long. There's now 2 separate Special Services Committees. There's the Board of Education Special Services Committee, and there's also now a parent-run Special Education Parent Advisory Group, which is known as a CPAG. The Board of Education Special Services Committee is currently comprised of 4 members, Mrs. Cindy Allberger, Mrs. Carolyn Incarnato, Mr. Brad Sparta, and myself. The Board of Education Special Services Committee is run like any other Board of Education committee. We plan on meeting every other month as a committee of 4 members with the Superintendent, Director of Special Services, to discuss special education topics. We will also have ourselves and the Superintendent, Director of Special Services available to meet monthly with the Special Education Parent Advisory Group, the CPAG, the leadership team to discuss special education topics brought forth by the parents in their monthly meetings. The Special Education Parent Advisory Group is a parent-run group. It provides input on the policies, programs, and practices that impact services and supports for classified children in the district. The CPAG is for parents and caregivers in the Vernon Township School District special education program of a child receiving extra services and concerned about their child and are not classified within special education. As previously mentioned, over the summer, the CPAG held a meeting that Mr. DiBenedetto and Mr. Kendler were invited to answer parents and caregivers' questions. Also, a trainer from the statewide parent advocacy network known as SPAN went over how to start and maintain a parent-run special education parent advisory group. The CPAG hosts an open meeting once a month, and their next meeting is on Tuesday, November 28th, 7 o'clock, here in the Lounsbury Hollow Library. Dinner is served and catered by the Tomato Garden. The Tomato Garden has been extremely generous to supply dinner each month. Minutes are created at each of the parent-run CPAG parent meetings and emailed out to all parent and caregiver members. The CPAG has 3 members who hold leadership positions. They bring forth the issues and topics discussed at their monthly parent meetings to the Board of Education Special Services Committee and the Superintendent, Director of Special Services. The 3 CPAG leadership team members are Michelle Fulton, who is the president, who is sitting in the audience. That's her. Leslie Macbeth is the vice president, and Amy Brettenbach is the recording secretary. The CPAG leadership team has begun to reach out and meet with other local CPAGs. In the back, placed by all the paperwork, is this form. If anyone is interested, please take one. And this includes all the information about the CPAG on that paperwork. Then also, we met with the CPAG, and I'll go over some of the information. On October 18th, the Board of Education Special Services Committee members, Carolyn Incarnato and myself, with the Superintendent and Director of Special Services, met with the CPAG leadership team. They brought forth 3 issues from their September parent CPAG meeting. Their first issue they brought forward was fencing. Adequate fencing extensions are needed at schools for students who are runners and will run towards unsafe locations such as the woods or road. The Superintendent, Director of Special Services, reported fences have been extended and are actively seeking better fencing alternatives. They're actively working on that right now. Number 2, lack of in-class resource in college prep classes. The lack of in-class resource at the high school for students in college prep level classes. Instead, students can currently take an optional study skills class as an elective. It is important to note that Vernon Township School District is the only K-12 district in our area, Walk Hill being the only 9-12 district, that does not offer in-class resource at college prep level classes. The superintendent, director of special services stated there are not any students with IEPs failing college prep level classes. The CPAG will continue to work on that issue. Number 3, general education homeroom inclusion. General education homeroom inclusion for students with IEPs so that they have a home base for the purposes of confidentiality, streamlining schedules and specials, field trips, and special events with appropriate grade levels as role models for birthdays and class photos. The superintendent, director of special services, reported this is happening in upper grades and will contact building principals and teachers for their help to achieve this. The second meeting, on November 7th, the Board of Education Special Services Committee members, Carolyn Incarnato and myself, with the superintendent, director of special services, and Mr. Kendler, supervisor of special services K-6, met with the CPAG leadership team again. The CPAG brought forth the following issues from their parent October meeting. Number 1, transportation. Parents were concerned about frequently changing bus drivers and the bus drivers not all knowing the school schedule. They requested training for bus drivers across all age levels. Note was made that that was done 2 years ago, and the case managers had provided appropriate information to bus drivers, so all are prepared for situations that arise for students with special needs. Discussion took place regarding the fine balance of confidentiality versus the drivers learning what students require. Administration decided that case manager can provide relevant information. Number 2, students in special education breach of confidentiality. Schoology and Power School breach of confidentiality was brought up since students were identified by names of students in special education due to how class lists were posted available to view to anyone who signed on. The student schedules also had information stated on them regarding which special education programs and settings students were placed in. Concern was noted regarding students posting schedules on social media and unknowingly giving away their own confidential special education status. A secondary concern was the extended length of time it took to have it fully rectified. The CPAG was advised this will never happen again and that the district is switching to a new computer system and will be much more careful. Classes are now number coded, so names of class settings such as resource room will not be highlighted on a student's schedule. Number 3, classes offered at high school for students with special needs. It was requested for a guidance counselor to come to a CPAG meeting to explain the classes offered for students with special needs transitioning from the 7th and 8th grade to high school. There seems to be some confusion from middle school parents regarding scheduling high school classes for students with special needs. Administration worked with them and was very happy to encourage the parents to bring their list of questions, and the administration assured the leadership team someone will attend a CPAG meeting to discuss the classes offered at the high school for scheduling. Number 4, follow-up discussion took place from last month regarding inclusion and assigning students in special education to general education classrooms. The CPAG was told it's not appropriate for all students. Some entire specialty classes are not integrated at all. Special circumstances will prevent this from happening for all students. However, it is individually based and will follow based on each student's IEP. The CPAG president made the point that students with special needs are like everyone else and they need to be treated in a general education students first. The CPAG wishes to shift the culture of our district so that it becomes more natural and accepting of students with special needs within general education settings. Another follow-up from last month, the CPAG asked how many students with IEPs are enrolling and then continuing through college prep level classes and the supports in place for them. The information will be supplied to them. Also, discussion took place about parents, guardians, and family members taking photos or videos at school events and posting them online. While parents can't be stopped from doing this, they can be reminded about about media consent refusal and asked not to take pictures of videos and not to post photos or videos on social media or share that include anyone else's children in a school setting. A great suggestion was made by Mr. Kendler to create a list of parent contacts for certain topics within the CPAC pamphlet that is currently being created. For example, list specific parent volunteers who are comfortable talking with other parents on specific topics such as autism at different age levels, specific medical needs, related services, eligibility, etc. The administration was also very receptive to posting the CPAC's information on the district website. So far, the communication between the parent-run CPAC, Board of Education Special Services Committee, and the administration has really been off to a great start. The CPAC is looking forward to continuing to establish an active special education parent advisory group within the Vernon community, and the Special Services Committee and the administration are happy to support and work with them. On a side note, at the Grandparents and Parents Day this week at Rolling Hills, there were signs posted stating photos were prohibited. It was nice to see the follow-through from the Board of Education Special Services Committee, the administration, and CPAG having a positive impact on protection of all of our students. Yesterday, a Board of Education Special Services Committee meeting was planned, but had to be canceled and will be promptly rescheduled. That's it. Thank you.
That's a thorough report, Teresa.
I don't do anything halfway, Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you for that information.
No problem.
Any other committee reports?
Yes. I'd be pleased to do the buildings and grounds, unless one of the committee members would like to share this.
You can go ahead, Steve.
Yep. We, the committee met earlier this week, November 14th. We talked about parking at Rolling Hills. We know how crowded it is, and concern from one of the committee members was expressed regarding the snow removal. So we discussed that. We're looking at the parking lot, and we've contacted a line striper. We're going to have additional striping in the paved playground section, not the entire, but for the off-season during the winter months. We'll be able to fit probably 8 to 10 more spots there. And then Dr. Stumper suggested, if you know the building, his office window looks out over the back, and it's the driveway, but there's a wide section of driveway. We believe that we can get another good 5 spots in there. So with an additional 15 spots or so, we think that will solve the problem. Secondly, I had put together a kitchen equipment summary for the committee to look at, rating the pieces of equipment, 1 being the best, 5 being the worst. So we are working on changing out the 5s, if you will, the equipment that's in the worst condition. Daryl Storms, head of maintenance, works very closely with Maureen Remner, and has moved some pieces of equipment from Walnut Ridge that we're no longer using to other spaces, so we don't necessarily have to purchase new equipment, but we will be moving forward with getting cost estimates and looking at changing out the unsafe equipment. Thirdly, we are looking at the electrical at the high school. It's an all-electric building. The electrical equipment, the electrical switchgear, if you will, it dates back to the 70s. So we want to bring in an engineer and work with the engineer to devise a plan that we can implement, whether it's next year, going to bid, or whether we do it over a couple years' time. We'll get that advice from an engineer, but it's an old electrical equipment, and should the electric trip to the off position, we're not so convinced that we'll be able to reset it because the equipment is so old. Lastly, the rooftop unit we have on the roof. There's a handful of rooftop units, but there's 2 in particular that are in disrepair, so we did change out one over the summer months. We've become more efficient with this new unit. However, it's not completely plumbed in with the plumbing or electrical, so our goal is to, by the late spring, to have it up and running for the warmer season again. And that's,
There was also the vans at Lounsbury
yes.
Hollow.
do you want to,
It came up that it sounds like there's a new traffic pattern at Lounsbury Hollow that was started this year, where it seems like vans are dropping off children where parents are also dropping off children, and there's a lot of circulation, moving vehicles and kids crossing, and there are more buses in the parking lot. And so we talked about a solution to maybe have parent drop off in a slightly different spot so that we're not concentrating all of that. And, you know, in order to avoid a problem, you know, where it turns out the vans are making some crazy three-point turn where kids are trying to cross behind them, and
Correct.
it sounds unsafe,
We need to solve that problem.
yeah.
And then lastly, Steve, we spoke about the automated logic and how it clears automatically. Very impressive demo,
Yes.
Yeah.
and it's quite a system
That was
that's installed.
amazing.
Yeah, pretty good. If
Yeah.
there's temperature control in the rooms, it's automatic. Daryl checks every building and every room on a daily basis. And, you know, the air handlers kick in when needed, and pretty impressive.
Very good, thank you.
Any other committee reports? Okay, we'll move to letter J, public participation. Items on the agenda. Please come forward, state your name, and direct your question or comment to me. Okay, we will close it to the public. We'll move
You
to.
got one, gentleman.
Oh, sorry, Steve.
I was trying to get some information, I'm sorry. Steve Dunlop. On the agenda, there's an item at the end about the HIT report and
Yes.
drug testing.
Yes.
I have the numbers that have enrolled in the program. I didn't write down the numbers of those enrolled in the schools. Do you have that by chance? It was your page 20 on the agenda. On the online agenda, it's not in the published. I think it's about 1,000 in the high school. Is
There's
that right?
five, can we answer?
Yes, please.
There's
Thank you.
525 children at the high school enrolled.
No,
in the
according to
program.
This is 484.
No, yeah, it's a little bit higher than that.
Okay, but the total number of students is about 1,000,
At the high school, it's 997.
997, and at the Glen Meadow, about 750?
700, yeah.
700?
Mm-hmm.
So there were 700 students at that school, only 74 enrolled in the program. Is it completely voluntary at Glen Meadow?
Mm-hmm.
Specials, they're not required to be tested.
No, it's completely voluntary.
Okay. At the high school,
If you're
Special is
involved
more
in
voluntary.
clubs, sports, you're driving, all those activities.
it just seemed that, you know, with 484 students, 7 tested, 74 students, 5 tested, seemed to be kind of an irregular.
After last board meeting, I spent the day with the committee that does all this, and we went through all that, and we're going to make sure that we have more students involved in Glen Meadow by making sure that we advertise and get things out. Because we went to electronic with all of our forms, some forms need to be physical forms, and that's one of them for our parents. I don't think many of our parents were aware of all that was going on. We've had more students involved in it since we've been talking about it this week. So I think that it would just basically might have been the way we were advertising the program in
It just
Glen
seemed
Meadow.
like a very low number.
Precisely. So,
10%
and I
of
did
students.
meet with everyone based on what had happened, or what the discussion was at the last board meeting.
And if you would belabor me one moment.
Sure.
I made a comment at the last meeting about the minutes, and Steve Kepnes and I have spoken about this a couple times, where the minutes sometimes are less than complete.
Right.
I said that there was no mention of going into closed session, which was not correct. I was basing that off of the Oprah documents that he gave me, not the actual complete minutes. So I had a page missing, so it just showed the opening, and then voting, and then the president's report. So I want to apologize to Steve for that, and to the board, because obviously it was in the minutes that they went into executive session. So I just want to correct the record, if I may.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. All right, any other questions or comments, agenda items? Okay, we'll move to letter K, superintendent's report.
Thank you, sir. Informational items are listed for you. Cedar Mountain students have done a magnificent job at our board office with regard to artwork. Student winners of the What's Your Anti-Drug contest from each school that participated are listed for you. Mr. Joseph continues to become more famous each and every month, it seems. He's either on television, on video, or now he's won additional awards. Brianna Van Orden, Glen Meadows student, won the Sussex County Salute to Military Veterans Essay Contest and read it in front of a significant number of people.
Mhm.
The marching band had a magnificent year, placing first at Ridge High School, third in the states at Rutgers, and placing in the nationals in Allentown, Pennsylvania. The It's an amazing amount of work that that group does, and the results are quite amazing. And as you'll see, additional accolades are put forth to younger students who make county band competitions, so that the excellence of the high school band starts at an early age, as I'll tell you in a second. The drama club had an excellent Noises Off production, in which a significant number of students were involved. It was quite entertaining. The talent of the students there is very impressive. And if you go to the addendum, the robotics club has been quite active, engaging across the border in the Warwick Farmers Market, along with Warwick Robotics. We have a very active group of young people there who will continue to show off the talents of those students. They also went to Goshen, New York, to participate in the Girls World Expo. Item H, congratulations to the following Glen Meadow students for the New Jersey Honors Band. As I was saying before, the excellence of the band starts early. Alyssa Kohler and David McMillan have been named commended students in the 2018 National Merit Scholar Program. Good information. One recommendation.
Yes, thank you.
Recommendations, item A, it is recommended the board approve the following personnel items as listed. Please note that there are some on the agenda, on the addendum too.
Motion for 2A, please.
So moved.
Mr. Higgins, second.
Second.
Mrs. Incarnato, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara,
Yes.
Mrs. McGee,
Yeah.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item B, it is recommended the board approve professional development travel.
Motion to approve 2B, please.
So moved.
Mrs. DeYoung, second.
Second.
Mrs. McGee, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Uh,
Mrs. Incarnado,
Jen?
Yes.
Can I abstain from the professional travel?
sure.
Thank you.
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara,
Abstain?
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
We're going to hold on item C. Item D and E can be put together. This has to do with policies and regulations for readings.
Motion to approve 2D and E, please.
So moved.
Mr. Higgins, second. Mrs. LaPara, questions or comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Oh, you go
No,
ahead. I
no,
have to
no,
find,
do yours first.
well, I have to find my, where is my policy?
Most of the policies were sent out with the work session packet.
It's right here. Here it is. I had a couple of questions just as I was reading through it. I think it's great that we're revisiting this policy and updating it. My first question was just, it was like a vocabulary question, I guess, in the second paragraph. It's 4 lines down. Additionally, this policy is intended to guide in the prevention of contagion when a student commits suicide. And so I looked up the definition of contagion to like understand how it was being used there, and I wondered,
It's a clinical term that is,
yeah,
you've heard of copycat
Yeah.
items, and it relates to that type of syndrome. So it's a clinical term that's used. I didn't come up with that. The people who wrote this policy helped me revise it. All are in the field
okay.
doing this, so that is an official term they use.
Yeah, the other, I read a couple other policies, and the other term I saw was proliferation. And so I was just, so I appreciate your explanation. I was just trying to understand, you know.
Understood.
Yeah, thank you. The other question I had was on the second page, Part B, number 2, where we say, at the end, shall render first aid in accordance with policy 8441 and summon medical assistance. And I wondered, within our policy, should we be saying, like, immediately call 911? You know, specify that that should definitely happen as part of our action plan? I mean, I guess medical assistance seems open-ended,
the board would like that, I can certainly add it. It's up to the board. It's your policy. And the regulation is, it's understandable. The,
841.
it essentially calls for emergency action as necessary, but I can add that with no difficulty.
Right, because is 911 always medically necessary?
For student,
I mean, if it is, then I would say yes.
it's more of a situational than an
ambulance
absolute
faster.
thing.
This is, when a suicide attempt is witnessed on school premises or at a school-sponsored event. And so I would assume, an attempt would require medical personnel.
It would not always require medical personnel,
Not always.
I would humbly say.
Okay.
Okay, I can understand totally
Yeah.
your concern, but an attempt can be stopped before anything happens, and as a result, the medical attention is more psychiatric than it is medical.
Sure. Yeah, I see your point. I see that.
Wouldn't, I guess that depend on, unfortunately, the process of how the student is
That's exactly, yeah.
moving forward? I guess that's, I'm just trying to think, having taught high school, if I walked into a bathroom and walked in on a situation, I don't know. I guess another question I have is, shall render first aid. Is this something that the teachers are taught, or, I mean, how would you render first aid if you walked, let's say, into a high school bathroom and unfortunately you walked into a horrible situation? Is that something, I guess I'm trying to get a sense of, how would you render first aid if necessary? I mean, if you're not a medical doctor and you're not a psychiatrist and you walk into something other than, that's what I'm just trying to, I don't want to put teachers in an uncomfortable situation that, to walk into a situation of that nature, I mean, at least I would think you would feel like the world stopped spinning. And then I want to make sure the teachers are okay, along with that child, the concern, if there is some sort of medical issue. So I think, I saw there would be some training, but some sort of clarification of that, especially for the teachers, how to help the student, because I don't want anyone ever to be stuck in this situation, especially a student, and then for one of our teachers or someone in our schools, and then for them to come back and say, well, you got to render first aid, and you just, just some sort of clarification for that would be very helpful.
I can definitely do that.
Okay. And I also had another question, actually. Are you done?
Well, my last one was about staff training. Do you have something before that?
No, go right ahead.
I noticed that staff training is new in our policy. It's been newly added in this version. And so I didn't have specific questions about the training, I guess, maybe Teresa does, but I wondered, this is maybe too broad, maybe you have a more specific question about how it applies to this policy, but I wondered, are there other policies where we have a mandatory staff training or professional development, built into our policy?
I need to, I don't have it on me, but the required trainings put forth to our staff members administratively, at the teacher level, at the custodial level, the list is 2 or 3 pages. So suicide training is a requirement, I believe, every 2 years for a 2-hour session. The training we're referring to here is for the people who do the needs assessment. Okay? What's happening now is that our needs assessment people are bogged down in crisis circumstances and are having trouble accomplishing their normal tasks. Okay, so we're looking to train an additional cadre of staff members. For example, guidance counselors. If we have a school psychologist and a guidance counselor doing a needs assessment, we don't need 2 psychologists doing a needs assessment. So it's, as I said, this is not, this comes from the group of people, mainly at the high school, who are engaged with this all the time. We've met with them. Ms. Cleary was present to observe. They in turn have met with the middle school professionals. So this is a collaborative, communicated effort towards doing what the people who are responsible for this want to do. And I'm very pleased with their work. I am very impressed. But I can add those clarifications without any difficulty.
Yeah, and I think, you know, with this staff training, this is saying every teaching staff member must complete.
Like I said, that's already a requirement from the
Right.
state.
Yeah, okay. Well, thank you for clarifying all of that.
And then out of curiosity, on page 5 for the staff training, it says if this instruction will be provided by a licensed healthcare professional with experience of issues in mental health. Who usually does that training for our district? Do you bring someone in, or is it someone
Yeah, we-
in-house?
The last time we did it, we brought someone in. I don't recall their name or who they were.
Okay, but you brought someone in, okay. And I also have a question for procedure D on page 5. The last sentence says, furthermore, the school administration reserves the right to require an additional psychiatric evaluation.
Right.
Who pays for the psychiatric eval? Is that on the
And it-
parents or
there's
is
not
it
a-
the
there's-
district?
The initial, let's say, God forbid, a student is involved with a situation where the risk assessment team believes they need to go out of the school to a hospital for it's not a psychiatric evaluation, please understand, we use Newton Hospital.
Okay.
Newton Hospital does not have a psychiatrist on duty when we send a student there. They have an assessment team that does a very good job, but they're not a psychiatrist. They make a decision whether that student needs further attention from a psychiatrist. At that point, that is the parent's responsibility. I must say this. It costs $3,400 for a referral to Newton Hospital for a family. Fortunately, most of it is covered by insurance, but we have families who are not insured. This is a major problem.
Well, that was my question because, I mean, first and foremost, I want all of our students to be safe. I mean, their health, safety, and well-being is of utmost importance. I also want to make sure our teachers are fully comfortable with this. This is becoming, as we all know, a very big issue right now, depression, whatnot. So that's just something I find concerning. And when I taught middle school, there was a student who did commit suicide, who was a middle school age student, not in school, but at home. And it, to this day, I mean, I still can close my eyes and remember hearing about it. So I just want to make sure that this policy, you know, is ironclad. Anything the teachers need, you know, they let you know, that our students are safe. And,
I have
I think that's it.
the team that wrote the policy is reviewing it. We just finished the type-up of it the other day. Met with them up to Tuesday. I met with the individual, Ms. Cruz, who does an excellent job. I met with her Tuesday, gave it to the Miss Mary Grace to type up, sent it back to the team of people working on it, and they may have some adjustments too. So I'll add the clarifications, and then any adjustments they have, I'll make sure you're aware of.
Can I ask one more question? I know our students are our greatest resources when we become aware of an at-risk student. Is there any program, I know there's training for the faculty, is there anything in place with guidance that suggests to students how to handle it when they know someone near them is in trouble? I know you've had many reports, but is there anything that tells them what to do?
Interestingly, that's a great question. Mr. Lakaruba, as you know, he's dispersed guidance throughout the building at the high school so that guidance counselors have a better view of what's happening in the school. The psychologists, Mr. Lakaruba, are of the understanding that the guidance people need more training. The point you bring up of students being a resource towards their peers is an excellent point, and I'm going to do some checking on that to make sure that that is addressed. I feel confident that it is, but I don't know for 100%, so I will find out.
Yeah, that was a very good question, because that was something else I was gonna ask. I had written here too. Because sometimes our first line of defense are our students. They'll hear something from a friend, or they'll see something on social media. And, you know, they need to know, like, we teach our students all about social media, how to handle a Chromebook, how to be safe. And I mean, I know my own children can tell you the whole 9 yards back and forth, but yet, when I was reading this, I even looked at my own kids and I said, okay, if you find out someone wants to commit suicide or they're suicidal, what do you do? And they kind of stopped and they said, well, we don't know. I guess I would go tell a teacher. And that's when I just thought, you know what, maybe can we shift into something of teaching them how to handle this, so that
Yeah,
way they
that's
can
what
learn?
I believe Ms. Incarnato meant. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
that's what I'm
The-
saying.
What happens a lot is a child who might be shy to tell an adult will tell a friend who will tell a teacher,
Right.
okay? And interestingly, what has become our best resource in terms of ascertaining what's going on has to do with the Chromebooks. I've told you about the alert system on the Chromebooks. It's unbelievable how positive that system is in identifying any time a student gets involved in a search for anything related to self-harm. Unfortunately, there are some songs out that have the words in them that trigger the alerts. So it's maddening, and I feel very sorry. The psychologists at the school, I don't know how they're doing it. It's hard, very busy. Because even a How to Tie a Noose is a new song out. We've had about 7 or 8 kids search for the words for it. That sets off an alert. It takes an hour to go through to find the kid, ask the questions, do the right thing. That's a lot of time. I'm becoming more familiar with the music of young people than I want to. I will make those changes. I appreciate the intelligent input from the board on this.
Any more questions or comments before we vote?
Yes.
Ed?
Relative to the last thing that was discussed about the students being our best resource in this area, on page 6 going into 7 on this policy, it actually talks about teaching staff members shall attempt to prevent social contagion by, and it goes on and on page 7 to say encouraging students to ask probing questions when a fellow student discusses suicidal thoughts and to report such incidents to a teacher, a coach, or any other adult. So, I mean, that is the first line of defense. The one thing that I would like us to address is making students, making is the wrong word, but advising students who may be in crisis, giving them an outlet, giving them a place that they can call. Maybe it's a poster on a wall, anything like that. Are you in crisis? Call this number. In fact, I was trying to pull something up on here. If you just give me a second. There's a young woman who was in college a couple of years back who committed suicide. Her name is Madison Holdern, and actually a member of my family worked on a bill with another gentleman in New Jersey to get the Madison Holdern Act passed in New Jersey, and it's gone into law. In fact, it went into law August of 2016, but it's targeted at institutions of higher learning, colleges specifically. And colleges are now required to have someone available 24/7 to be able to answer a phone and start talking to somebody who may be in crisis. I'm not suggesting that we do that, but that ought to be in our heads. And there's, on the Madison Holdern site, they do list a national suicide prevention hotline, which might be a good poster to put up in our schools. It says, are you in crisis? Call this number to talk to somebody. So you reach a national person. But wouldn't it be great if we had someone within our district that our students felt comfortable with who'd be able to answer that call? I think the thing we should be, when I read this policy, it was talking about, in at least the way I read it, what do we do if this happens? And I didn't see enough on prevention. And I think that's where we should start here. I have no objections to what we're trying to do here, but we also need to make sure that we're, as Mr. Di Benedetto said, he, in his rationale for spreading out guidance throughout the high schools to make it more accessible to students who, for whatever the reason, but certainly for those who are in crisis. But those in crisis don't necessarily want to walk into anybody's office and reach out, but they might pick up the phone and call somebody. They might talk to a friend. They might talk to a coach that they're very familiar with and say, I got some problems. But I think we need to reach our students and make sure that if they're in crisis or they know of someone in crisis, that we get them some help before the event rather than after the event. So that's what I want to, I hope we could add something in there that would help that. Thank you.
If I could just add to what Ed said, I thought that was a great idea. It made me think of when I go into ladies' restrooms, no matter if it's at a movie theater or a hospital, and I can't speak for gentlemen's, but in the ladies, every time you close the door, there's some sort of signs like, do you feel like you're being abused? Do you have a designated driver? There's all different signs, because when people go into bathroom stalls, they may be comfortable there, Ed, you know, they're by themselves, it's quiet, and that might be an idea to start looking into locker rooms or bathrooms, if there are posters or phone numbers, something available, have it there.
There are such signs regarding abuse from the various organizations in the county. Those are posted. Obviously, I don't know the girls' rooms, but
Well,
they are
yeah, and
in
I'm in
men's
the same
rooms.
boat with the men,
But,
but yeah. And then about if you feel suicidal, do you feel like life's not worthy living, maybe looking into, you know, some sort of
Right.
suicidal thing as well, because
Okay.
a bathroom stall might be where someone may wanna call from.
Or text,
A text, yeah, something, that privacy, so just throwing that idea out. But thank you, Ed, that was a good idea.
Thank you, Teresa.
Any other questions or comments?
Welcome to Mrs. Alberg.
Congratulations. Everyone's doing well?
Yes,
thanks. All right, roll call vote.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado?
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara?
Yes.
Mrs. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. Allberger?
I'll abstain for now since I don't know what we're voting on.
Mrs. Coglin?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Anything else?
Also, just congratulations to Ms. Alberg and her family.
Thank
on
you.
a New addition.
Congratulations.
Drove
Thank
right
you.
from the hospital to here.
All right, Steve, letter L.
Okay. For your information is the use of buildings and grounds through the top of page 8. And then your field trips are listed as well. And then page 9, recommendations. It's recommended that the board approve the following financial reports as listed.
Motion approved 2A, please.
So moved.
Mr. DeYoung, second.
Second.
Mrs. Incarnado, questions or comments?
Just a question on 105. It's a Kara Sports Group Initiative Basketball. Are we trying to stimulate interest in basketball? And how's that?
Hold on, Bill.
Sir, could you repeat what you said? I didn't catch it.
Yeah, it was on number 105, which was the use of buildings and grounds. Looks like there's an outside sports group that's using our facilities for maybe a basketball program that might be a positive thing, just like to know a little bit more about it, whatever it's about.
We can check that out for you and get that information.
I'm not, Bill, they used it last year. As per policy, we do allow them, and that's why they're covering the custodial overtime cost.
Yeah, so I guess I was just not worried, I'm just interested if it's a replacement for PAL basketball, is it a group trying to help us improve the performance?
No, not at all.
111, Bill?
No,
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely no.
105?
No.
I guess I could second that. I'm just wondering who the Kara Sport Group initiative is. That's-
We'll find out.
Yeah, perfect.
But if you would like, we can revisit that policy on who we allow to use the facilities. If that's, because there may be an adult group requesting use of the facility, and that's why we have a fee schedule.
Right. Yeah, I was just curious as to who they were, and maybe a positive's gonna come out of it, you know, it's, don't know. Maybe it's just a recreational thing for a group, I don't know.
Yes.
Any other questions?
I had a question about under field trips. Doesn't seem like a real field trip, but maybe the 8th grade recruitment event? I wonder what the details were on that.
Sure. A couple of years ago, when we were concerned that our students did not realize all the options that they had at the high school as we were building the CTE programs, we tried to bring down information to them and sort of have a pep rally, if you will. We bring the band down, we talk about clubs.
I
The
see.
theater kids do a small presentation about what it's like to be at the high school.
It's a magnificent program.
And so through Joe's office and Mr. D and I go down and we talk to the students about all the great things that they can do. The big push the last 2 years are the concurrency and what that means to them. And then the idea of the clubs and activities and what we're looking for our students as they move forward. We also bring the 7th graders up to the high school because we found out maybe that decisions were being made at the end of 7th grade and the beginning of 8th grade for whether it's Rotec or Pope John or any of the schools. So that was the idea behind it.
Do you make an effort to include some of the kids, I don't know what time of day this is, but any of the kids who have, you know, chosen a different option for 6th, 7th, 8th grade to try to bring them back to the high school at an event like this?
Those people get letters from me. We haven't invited them to something like this because they may be in school as well, and I don't want
It's
to,
during the day.
yeah, I don't want to pull them away
Right.
from their education. But we do send letters, and then we have the evening meetings. You were part of one, you know,
Yeah.
where we have the parents in and them in for a light meal, and then talk about all the great things that are at the high school.
Right. And that meeting, I think, was really great and informative, but I know just from seeing a lot of these things in person that, you know, for kids, it's probably really nice to also get that
Yes, yeah, that's for sure.
visibility into it. So I wish that there was some way to, you know,
As a board
draw
member,
those
you're not advocating for a child to play hooky from his school. are
never,
you?
I never am,
I just wanted to clarify.
No.
Okay.
for the record.
Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Mrs. LaPara,
Yes.
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Alberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes?
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter B, it's recommended that the board accept the report of the secretary and the treasurer of school monies as attached.
Motion for 2B, please.
So moved.
Mr. DeYoung.
Second.
Mr. Higgins, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Alberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter C, it's recommended that the board approve the transportation as listed below.
Motion approved 2C, please.
So moved.
Is that Mrs. Incarnado? A second?
Second?
Mr. Higgins, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Alberger,
Abstain.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara,
Yes.
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. On to page 13, letter D. Sent, received contracts, recommended that the board approve the contracts as listed below.
Motion to approve 2D, please.
So moved.
Mr. DeYoung.
Second.
Mr. Higgins, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Alberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes?
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara,
Yes.
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter F, it's recommended that the board approve the Elementary Secondary Education Act Amendment application to the state, applying the 16-17 carryover funds as followed, as
Steve, are we
follows.
doing E?
Skip D,
E?
Thank you so
bottom of
much.
page 13.
Yes, recommended. The board approve the list of work session public meeting dates beginning in January.
Motion approved to E, please.
So moved.
Mr. Higgins, second.
Second.
Mrs. Coughlin, questions or comments?
Have the new board members been appraised of these dates?
Not in total, but the reorganization, yes. I'll provide them with full copies as soon as possible.
Roll call vote.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
I'm going to abstain,
Mrs.
since I won't be here.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado,
I'll vote yes.
Mrs. LaParra,
Yes.
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Alberger,
I'll vote yes too.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion
Rebels.
carries.
We are.
All right. Back to F. Recommended that the board approve the ESEA amendment applying the 16-17 carryover funds as follows.
Motion approved to F, please.
So moved.
Mrs. Alberger, second.
Second.
Mr. Higgins, questions or comments?
Yes, I have some questions. I just need an explanation. I really don't understand F and G. If we're getting Title I money, is this found money that's being applied towards an expense, so we now have excess?
I'll explain that if you like, sir.
Okay.
All federal money must supplement programs, not supplant them. Okay, so for example, on item G, we have salaries listed of teaching staff members who last year were trained in Wilson Reading and who this year are implementing the Wilson Reading program beyond the Foundation's basal system. So we're able to utilize Title I funds for 17-18 for salaries that we normally would have paid out of local expenses because the Wilson program is a new program that the board paid for last year for training. So all of those teachers have gone through a full year of training to become certified Wilson teachers.
Can you
I-
clarify that,
Yeah,
what you
it's
just said though?
still
The,
a little gray.
this fund is not supplementing, it's
It can't supplant.
not supplanting, but it's
It's
not a
supplementing.
bonus on their salary.
Oh,
It
no,
is
no.
in place of part of their salary?
No, if
It's
it was,
funding.
Chuck and I would be teaching.
Right. So, for example, if someone's making $100,000 and they took this class and we get a $40,000 grant,
Yes. so
they're still
60
making $100,000.
Yes, and 60
And
of
we
it is
get,
local.
we get $40,000 grant money, where does that money go?
It goes,
To a salary line, I
Goes to
think,
the
right?
salary.
so if Ms. Sweeney, let's say Ms. Sweeney's salary is $90,000. Without this program, the local budget would pay to $90,000.
Right.
But with this program, the local budget pays $50, the federal government pays $40. And
I
that's
know where you're going, Bill.
We
But we
budgeted
budgeted
90.
in the Title I money.
Right.
We didn't budget 90. We knew what we were gonna use the
Right.
money for.
So there's
So
no
There's a
found
separate
money.
budget line
All of
for
these,
Title
all
I
of
money?
these monies were budgeted in the regular local budget.
If you look at our budget that we approve in April, the Title I money, we anticipate what we're gonna receive for Title I.
Okay.
So it's already,
this is
it's
just
already
the-
built into the.
This is the
budget.
reality of it happening.
Right,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Are these are these titles then that are added to these teachers? You know, aren't these general ed teachers? Are they also like gen ed Title I teachers? Is that they could write it on a business card, that kind of thing?
The Wilson program is incorporated in a number of ways. It can be a regular classroom teacher. For example, Ms. Sweeney is a regular ed teacher. She teaches foundations. She uses her Wilson training to further teach children with decoding difficulties. And if the kids are in a more significant difficulty, the ones who are pulled out will meet with one of these other teachers for Tier 2 and Tier 3 instruction. So, for example, I don't know off the top of my head who the cooperating teacher with Ms. Sweeney is. It might be Ms. Schmick, okay? But because Ms. Sweeney teaches language arts, and was trained in Wilson, she incorporates that, and you know, language arts at the early grade levels is a large block of time. That's why we're able to use $40,000. That's approximately 2/5 of a salary, okay? And that's
So it's not a
approximately what they-
title change, it's a certification that these
It's not a
teachers
it's not a title change, it's simply a certification addition. And all of this has been approved by the government, which is not easy to do, but the application for funding was approved. So we're doing everything above board here.
So but the Wilson training, I thought that the Wilson, students receiving like Wilson instruction services started in higher grades than,
No,
Elementary.
no, the main,
they're starting in kindergarten or first grade, whatever grades these
we have
teachers.
We have concentrated our Wilson people, grades 1, 2, and 3, for the most part. We have, I think, 11 teachers certified in Tier 1. We have 6 more being certified in Tier 2. And we decided that the best place to attack it is the early grade levels. We do have 1 or 2 Wilson teachers at other grades higher up for catch-up purposes. Our hope is that if we concentrate at the early grades, we will not need them in the higher grades later on down the road.
Mhm. And the differences in amounts, 40 versus 20, is that the number of students that are being served by those teachers?
Approximately, yes. In other words, a $20,000 funding would have less kids than a $40,000 funding. That's mostly because the 20s are pullouts, the 40s are regular classroom.
Just to be clear, we're on 2F. I know you're asking questions on G.
Sure, sorry.
Yeah.
Another question, have we ever budgeted for Title I or Title II money? Started a program in September and not gotten the money?
No, sir, we've always gotten the money that's been allocated to us.
Always?
Yes.
Oh,
but there's always that risk.
right.
Okay, any other questions on F? Roll call vote.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado?
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara?
Yes.
Mrs. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. Allberger?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter G. It's recommended the board approve the following faculty members to be paid out of grant funds as listed.
Motion for 2G, please.
So moved.
Mr. DeYoung,
Second.
Mr. Higgins. Lauren, did you want to expand on that?
I had one other question. You said that there are 10 or 11 teachers certified in Wilson, and so, but this Title I money is just attached to 5 of those teachers. So what are what's the criteria to decide who gets the money this year? It's decided in the budget planning last year, but then the teachers are assigned those
No.
responsibilities this year?
When I do the application takes about 16 hours to complete of work time. It's very complicated. I'm not going to be able to articulate exactly how I come about that, but essentially, we come in with a concept of, here's what we want to do, here are the grades we want to do it. We use free and reduced lunch to ascertain what schools are eligible. We apply the concept to the schools we want. They become our Title I schools. This year will be Cedar Mountain and Rolling Hills, and that's where we concentrate the monies. I didn't have to do it that way. I could have concentrated the monies at Lounsbury and Glen Meadow, but as I said, in cooperation with our language arts supervisor, who's quite excellent, Mrs. Stokel, this is the way, and Dr. McKay, this is what we came up with as a strategy.
Any other questions? Roll call vote.
Mr. Higgins?
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado?
Yes.
Mrs. LaPara?
Yes.
Mrs. McGee?
Yes.
Mrs. Allberger?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung?
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter H. It's recommended that the board approve the following goals as we discussed back in October.
Motion approved 2H.
Move that.
Mrs. Allberger, second.
I'll second.
Mrs. LaPera, questions or comments?
I have a question. On number 1, could you refresh my memory on that? what exactly that means again.
I think this tie, and please correct me if you disagree, would tie to our CTEs and other programs,
Okay.
allowing the students the opportunity to transition into their post-secondary school.
This was the 40-40-20
Okay.
reminder.
For number 4, we plan on actually migrating during the school year, right, Matt? To Genesis? So would it make sense to say prepare for transition and successfully migrate to, instead of just
Yeah,
preparing?
Well, July 1st it's active, but we have to schedule this spring in Genesis. So there's the conundrum.
We talked last week, that's
Yep.
not really gonna be complete until the end of first working period next year.
Okay.
So,
Or maybe, so prepare for transition and begin execution or begin
That's
migration?
right. And the idea simply is that you have to schedule this spring in Genesis, in a program that we're not using.
I just,
Well, maybe that should be the goal,
yeah.
to successfully prepare those schedules as part of the transition from Power School to Genesis.
Right. Fine,
Is that okay?
that's fine.
Just to put a little more meat on it than just preparing, right?
Right.
Okay.
As we stated
Meat
at
on
the
the
work
bone.
session, there's a lot to this,
Yes, understand.
as you well know.
Just, what did we change the language to on this?
I think prepare for transition is fine, and maybe just add something around
I said for.
ensure that
And
scheduling.
complete scheduling
Yes.
using the
successful
new
2018
software
scheduling.
technology,
Right.
Genesis.
I want to go back to number 1. Thank you for refreshing my memory, CTE and the 40-40-20. I'd also like to stress that I'm looking at the word to provide all students with programs and opportunities. And I understand students with IEPs obviously get individual educations looked at, but going back to the CPAG, working literally with all students and making sure that their needs can be met, and not, in a sense, cherry picking, but working with all of them if some of them want to get into CTE programs and making sure they can be successful
Right,
with whatever they need.
right.
Okay.
I don't understand the change, though. It says all students.
There
So
is
what
no
are you
change.
suggesting?
I think she was just,
No, underlining all.
yeah.
Emphasize.
Well, and emphasizing, in a sense, all students, because making sure that students with IEPs or special learning needs, that if they want to join a CTE program, that their needs are met within
That's
that
why
program.
the CTE programs are tiered. If you remember, we talked about that.
I understand that, but this goes back to the CPAG, it made me think of that. One of their concerns is the lack of in-class resource in college prep classes, and some of those CTE programs are college prep classes, so if a student needs that kind of support, having it available for them, because they may be perfectly successful in a post-secondary school with, necessary supports.
Right.
So I just wanted to say, because since it says all students, making sure that all students' needs are met.
Lauren, do you have a question?
No.
It looked like you did. That's fine.
Well,
Deep in thought.
it's not really, I agree with this statement. I think it's a good statement about summarizing our goals, but I'd also like to, at some point, I'd like to talk about the gifted students in the district and how we're also addressing those students' needs. They don't receive IEPs, they're not given IEPs, but they do represent a set of, a collection of children who do need some augmentation to instruction because of how they learn. And so it's sort of an aside to this comment. I hope that at some point we can talk about that, as an open board.
Mhm.
And I think these would become tasks and actions under these
Right.
goals.
These are the
right?
goals,
So,
right, then there's
these
action
are
plans.
goals,
Yeah.
we're talking about specific actions to reach these goals,
Right, so
so,
one of the
Yeah.
actions
You
may
know.
be, to your point, for
Right.
the gifted and talented, one action may be
Right.
to make sure we address the
Yeah.
students with IEPs, right? Those become the actions to achieve the goal.
right. And what I would like to suggest then is that maybe at our next work session, or, in the, January or February work session, that, we talk
the action
about
plan.
what we would perceive to be some of the areas, in more detail that we'd like to see get addressed, and what some of those action items would look like.
That's a
Traditionally,
good idea.
the board sets the goal, we put forth the action plan,
Yeah.
And we will definitely have that by the work
Yeah.
session.
Okay.
Right.
We'll try to get it done prior to the work session and get it to you, so that you have the ability to to give input on
Good.
that.
That's
Perfect.
perfect.
We'll try our best we can, okay?
Be best at the January work session, I think.
You have to approve the
You're gonna
goals
have some
first,
new
though.
board members.
Right.
Yep.
All right, any other questions or comments on the goals? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mrs. LaPera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Alberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter I, it's recommended that the board accept the retaining wall project at the high school as complete, allowing for final documentation to be completed and securing a one-year maintenance bond from the contractor.
Motion for 2I, please.
So moved.
Mr. Higgins and Mrs.
I'll second that. Or anybody else.
Mrs. LaPera, second.
There you go.
Questions or comments? This was discussed at the work
Work
session in
session.
detail. Roll call vote.
Mrs. LaPera,
Yes.
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Alberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Lastly, letter J, it's recommended that the board approve the following resolution related to the required contract type for your food service management services.
Motion for 2J, please.
So moved.
Mrs. Incarnado.
Second.
Very good. Questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. McGee,
Yes.
Mrs. Alberger,
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mr. DeYoung,
Yes.
Mr. Higgins,
Yes.
Mrs. Incarnado,
Yes.
Mrs. LaPera,
Yes.
Mr. Dwyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Letter M, public participation, items on the agenda, any other business?
Can I
No.
just ask a quick question?
Of
Was
course.
the travel already voted on? this
It
evening?
was.
It was, okay.
Yes.
I was gonna ask to be included in the Sparta, the county meeting. I don't know if I was on last month's or not.
We added you to last month when we approved it.
That was for the,
The work session.
that was for the DA,
Okay?
So you're going to which meeting?
this county meeting.
Okay,
December.
I'll add you
On
on.
December
December
6th.
6th.
Mhm.
Thanks.
Sorry about that.
That's all right.
It's okay. All right, I'll open to the public. Mr. Pieringer, good evening.
Hi, two things. Regarding the program that we do for the eighth graders to see if the great things we do at the high school, I think we should have one for fifth grade too, to catch the kids before they go someplace else for sixth, seventh, and eighth grade. Okay, because we have to advertise for ourselves, just as the other schools, the charter schools, who advertise for themselves. It's becoming competitive. Number two, I just want to, because we are talking about prevention with self-harm and suicide, there are programs available that address the kids. And they grew out of, I don't know where it's now because I haven't looked at it in quite a few years. After the Columbine shooting, the US Secret Service started what they call the Safe School Initiative. That's like a long time ago. And most of the results, what they came with, all the threat assessment came out of that, and most states, including New Jersey, adopted that. So after that was completed, they said, can we go and look to prevent it, the same people, and those were people from all big universities, I think from Harvard and from Columbia. They made the research for that, and they found, in general harm, the best prevention is twofold, and the resources used to be on the US Secret Service side, and I don't know if they still are that as they used to be. They are twofold. Number one is a school environment. You target the teachers, and you make sure that there are clear rules, basically stating if you think there's some trouble, you're not in trouble to talking about trouble, that you think there's some trouble. So you're not going to get punished
Right.
for saying, hey, might kill himself, or I'm having weird thoughts or something like that. And the other thing is, it has, so you identify teachers who are, students find easy to talk to them, you train those teachers, and you make sure that the students know they can to talk to Mr. X or Mrs. Y. Okay? And the second part is through peers in the schools, where they target students who are at the center of certain groups in the schools, so basically leaders. And you train them, you talk to them, what to watch out for and what you want them to do. And the rest then usually gets taken care of by peer pressure. I know I only have 5 minutes, but those papers are about 180 pages, so they go in very great detail, and I think a program like this could help. I read part of it with Nicole after one of the school shootings when she was in 1st grade, and she acted upon that. So even the little kids can understand it if you explain it to them correctly. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. Other questions or comments? Yes, ma'am, good evening.
Karen Zakula, Highland Lakes. Just really quick, I wanted to talk about, as far as with teen suicide.
Yeah.
It is a big thing. I am a parent of, that went through with my son. Sorry to say Newton Hospital has been a joke. As far as understanding if, while the kids are going through this, they have to go to Newton to make sure they're safe, understand completely. My son one weekend tried overdosing on pills, got him to Newton Hospital, was begging for inpatient. He needed help. They told me no, he calmed down, he said he's not gonna do it, he's fine. Follow up with the psychiatrist, so forth. Second weekend, to the point he locked himself in the bathroom, had a knife at his throat. Cops came, stretcher to the hospital. Would you believe they still turned around and said no, because he actually didn't do it, he didn't cut himself. I said, I'm trying to prevent this. Well, thank God moving forward he's fine, but having something in the school to help these kids, hospital therapists, psychiatrists, if kids are feeling like this, it's really hard because they will not relate with doctors and so forth. And I think it would be a great idea maybe coming up with something where the kids can feel safe. Who is there, a lot of kids that are thinking of suicidal, you're not gonna know. They will not post nothing, they will not say anything. Just like that, they'll go home and those are the ones unfortunately will try it, and it's really hard, it's too late. But maybe having them feeling comfortable and knowing that they could go to school, they can talk to someone without getting judged, without feeling anything, that might help. And I'd love to see if there's anything I can do to help to get some kind of program going. I wouldn't mind doing that. And then again, really quick, even for parents, laws have to change. It's really hard if you have a child with mental illness. By the age of 14, they have to sign a waiver, and they decide if they want you to talk to their doctor or not. They decide if they want to take medication or anything. So even that, it's very hard as parents too to get the help because of all these laws. So maybe having something else that at least the kids that are feeling like this and depression and so forth, but we need other sources because doctors, counselors, it's real, unless you're living through it and understand and what you go through, it's very hard to get that. So I just want to get that out there. If there's anything, I wouldn't mind helping out with some
Thank
kind
you.
of program.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poole.
Appreciate your insights. Other questions or comments? Mr. McCotter, good evening.
Quickly, yeah, okay. A little bit more of a question, more of a nuts and bolts kind of thing. I wanted to explain a rumor I heard at school, at the high school. I heard that there might be a water bottle filler coming at the high school where instead of going to the water fountain and drinking water at the water fountain, it's possible they could fill up water bottles at some point. And I remember hearing that discussion at the board level, and I believe it was approved at the board level to at least explore it. And wanted to thank you for the support of that. And hopefully it goes through. And I don't know if there's any update you can give us on that.
Sure, it's not a rumor.
Not a rumor.
It's not a rumor. Mr. Oseni approached me and he wanted to do a fundraiser with the bottles that you've seen. So I supported that, which is a pleasure. So what we will be doing is we're going to purchase one of these stations, if you will. It's the kind of the bottle fillers that can keep track of, in theory, how much plastic you've saved. You put your bottle under it, it'll fill it up. It's a bit of a project because it's not just changing out one of the existing water fountains. It's a flush mount to the wall, yet the water fountains are recessed slightly. So when we take the water fountain out, they'll have to build the wall flush and then mount it. So we're gonna do it during the Christmas break. We'll start with one in the high school outside of the cafeteria, and we're also gonna install one at Glen Meadow.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks. Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll close it to the public. We'll do open board member forum, then we'll do our closed session HIB, and then we'll come out, approve HIB, and no other action will be taken. So letter N, we move the closed session to the end of the meeting, Cindy.
Okay.
Open board member forum. All right.
Oh, I have a question. I was waiting, trying to be nice. I just want to tag on something Lauren has said. The Gifted and Talented Program. Can you explain the Gifted and Talented Program in the district? Who runs it? What age does it begin? How many students do we have in it roughly?
Can I suggest maybe they put that information together and send it to us, then we talk about it at the work session?
That's a perfect idea.
Yeah, instead of trying to off their top of their heads without,
I was gonna say,
at the end of a meeting.
Chuck
to-
had done at one point an
Yeah.
introduction to
I
it,
had
and
talked
handed out
about
the
it.
packet on
Yeah.
the whole program and what the program entailed,
Mhm.
but it would be interesting to get an update as
Yeah.
to
An update.
how it's doing and who's
But get some
participating.
documentation ahead of time, we can digest it, then
Yeah.
talk about it.
That's a good idea. And then, yeah, at the work session, go over it so we can learn all about it.
Okay.
All right.
Just on
yes.
information, or a couple articles in the paper, nothing to do with us, just in general. There was a public school in South Jersey, a sixth grader came to school with a handgun, was unloaded. Other kids saw it, didn't say a word for the whole day. At the end of the day is when it surfaced. Went through the entire day, another kid saw it. So it's, you never know, right? And the second thing was on excess fund balance, Steve. We always have a discussion, when the budget comes up. There was a school district just found guilty of hiding $4.5 million in excess fund balance from the public, which in fact then raised the taxes, and they were caught.
I did an audit.
Anybody do an audit?
Yeah, so somebody was in.
The audit, they must not be using a reputable auditor because that should be found by the auditor.
Should have been, right?
Yeah,
And it's one of those school
Unless they did a
districts,
good
it's in the
job
news
hiding.
all the time
really
anyway.
good job.
I don't know.
All right, anything else for closed session?
No.
I just wanted to, I wanted to acknowledge Carolyn's comments. I think your statement was really, thank you for making the statement. I sent an email to the board, yesterday, and I'm not gonna read that email out loud, but, I was really, the comments that have been made on Facebook over the past week have been, appalling. Just really, it's made me very sad and appalled to read the kinds of things that people feel comfortable saying on Facebook and the accusations that have been made. I have worked with Carolyn only for a few months, but in that time I've gotten to know her and think that I've begun to understand her character and how she operates. And I've worked with Brad for a little longer, and throughout this process of thinking about the building, while it was a complicated process, amongst us as board members, we've all operated, in good faith. We have not, there's been no bribes, there's been no malfeasance. And so the fact that so casually these accusations have been made about individuals, community members, is just, it's really, really saddening. Because at the end of the day, I respect all of you, I respect, our community as a whole, and I don't think we should be casual in the way that we throw these kinds of things around. Nobody should. It's sad. It's a sad state to think that is how Vernon has been defined for the past week, when we know there are really great things happening in our district, and as a board that we are, as Ed said, we have made while I've been on the board, we've made some difficult decisions about things we haven't always agreed, but at the end of the day, we're a board, and we come together and work collaboratively. And that we've been commended on from the outside. People do observe that we do remain respectful of one another, and I appreciate that. I think that that's one of the most valuable things about being in this place, is that we can all be very professional about what we do and still be compassionate and emotional, and, you know, caring individuals. So, thank you, Carolyn, for speaking up, and thank you for devoting these few months. I'm very excited to have the new members joining us. You know, we'll have you in January, but I'm going to be very sad to have Carolyn leave.
Thank you.
Great job, Carolyn. Yeah, you did great.
One more quick one, Dave.
Yes,
I wasn't
please.
going to say anything, but just to piggyback a little bit on what Lauren said. I don't know where I saw this, but over the weekend I saw the title of, I believe it was a child's book, and it said, "Don't let the turkeys get you down." And don't let the turkeys get you down on Facebook. There's about a dozen of those folks, okay? It doesn't represent the entire community. People are going to say things. There was a thing on the news the other day, or on a news segment the other day about Facebook, and the question was, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? I guess it's both, but it does give voice to those who want to make some statements without looking somebody in the eyeball and making them in person. So that's all I'm going to say about that. Just, you know, if you can avoid it, I would tell you to avoid it. But you always hear about that stuff. I mean, if we did anything wrong as a board on this whole Board of Education, you know, selling the buildings or anything, is we probably dragged it out longer than we needed to drag it out. And, you know, and I think we had all good intentions. We were trying to balance a bunch of things, you know, be fair to the taxpayers, try and find a home for the Historical Society. And for some folks in our community, it got very personal. But I don't think it ever got personal on our board. I think we spent an awful lot of time debating it. I don't remember us screaming at each other at all during the process, although we may have said a couple of things to each other that we might regret. I probably said a couple myself. But in the end, everybody voted their conscience, and that's what Board of Educations are about. And I hope that the new members who will be joining our board in January approach their job as a board member with the same intensity that the 9 people that are sitting here do.
Okay, thank you. Lori?
Totally different subject, but
Good.
I just wanted to let everybody know that the December 6th meeting that got mentioned for the county school board is a conversation on regionalization in Sussex County. I know it's a topic that's come up. We loosely talked about it as a board and kind of, you know, gave kind of a straw poll dissension about it. But there is going to be a countywide conversation. There's going to be a panel expert representation from NJEA, representation from, I believe, the administrators, the BAs, a county that has already done it, just to get all the information out there about what it is, how it, you know, what the positives, the negatives, how it affects student achievement, how it affects costs. And there was also a component of the message that came out to all the school board members to invite their local municipal government. So I just wanted to let the board know that I did forward that out to Mayor Shortway, so that he knew it was happening as well, and extended an invitation for our municipal government to at least know about it and give them the opportunity to participate as well. So if anybody's interested, it's an open meeting. It's December 6th. It's going to be at Sparta High School.
Yeah, I was just looking that up, that's where it is, right?
Yeah, Sparta High School.
And it doesn't start at 6.
Starts at 7. It's from 7 to 9, I believe, Cindy. And there isn't a dinner served at this one.
7 to 9.
It's 7 to 9, it's just coffee and, you know, light
Cannolis.
snacks or whatever. No dinner that night, yeah.
Cookies and coffee.
Thank you, Lori. Good info. Bill?
Dr. McKay, there was a question at the last work session, had to do with the differences in our schools, principal by principal. and you walk into one school and the principal has the school running a certain way, another school might have posters, one doesn't have posters, one has dress-up days, all those things. Were you going to address that in the future?
Yes,
at
we
one of
have
the
a
meetings?
administration meeting with the principals, and that's topic number one. And the idea is, if it's Red Ribbon Week, what would that look like in each of the schools? And we'll try to get a sense of what people are doing, best practices, and then try to uniform some of that.
Great, because I've been asked, as you're well aware.
Let's just be careful not to take, individual principals'
Autonomy.
feelings into
Mhm.
account for their schools. I don't know that, certainly, we as Board of Education members shouldn't be dictating how the principals run their programs in their schools. I can understand, some parents being, who have children in different schools being concerned about that, but in the end, it's the principal's responsibilities for running the building. Obviously, I'd be in favor of a lot of things, if we're doing a district-wide thing, that it gets handled pretty similarly across the board, but I don't think we have to mandate that it be handled identically, because the grade levels and the age is different, but from building
No,
to building.
it wouldn't be anything mandated. This is gonna be a discussion.
Okay.
All right, we have a closed session for the purposes of HIB. The only action we will take when we come back from closed session is to approve the HIB report.
Excuse me. I just need to speak about one minor issue that's a legal matter when we're in closed
Okay,
session.
so HIB and a legal matter,
No action.
No,
no action on the legal
and it won't
matter.
take long.
15 minutes, I'll say, for closed
If
session.
that, yes.
Motion to go into executive session?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Assume it's me.
It's all right, no problem. I'm sorry, who was the motion second, Dave?
Mrs. LaPera, Mrs. McGee. Roll call vote, please.
Okay. Carolyn?
Yes.
Lori?
Yes.
Okay. Where are we? Dave?
Yes.
Cindy?
Yep.
Ed?
Yes.
Laura?
Yeah.
Teresa?
Yes.
Bill? Yes. Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mrs. LaPera, second, Mr. Dion. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Good night.
Thanks to all you who tuned in.
I told you 9 was the over-under.
Oh, yeah.
It's still the
Very good.
over, but.
You're right.